Just give it another second. Still loading on my end.
Okay. I'll wait for your thumb. Good morning, everyone, and aloha. The hybrid meeting of the Cultural Resources Commission will now come to order. Quorum has been established with 6 members in attendance. Today is Wednesday, June 8, 2022, and it's 10:05 a.m. Pursuant to Act 220, Session Laws of Hawaiʻi 2021, which amended the Sunshine Law to allow meetings to be remotely conducted online. Effective January 1, 2022, the Cultural Resources Commission meetings will host a hybrid of online and in-person participants. A location has been identified on the agenda for the public to provide testimony on agenda items and to view the meeting. The meeting can also be viewed live online. A link to the YouTube live stream is provided on the county website. The video recording will remain under the YouTube channel for those who are not able to watch it live. All reports and surveys reviewed during this hearing are available on the county website. Commissioners, please be reminded that only one person may speak at a time. Please raise your hand to be recognized if you have a question or comment. At this time, I'd like to introduce the members of the commission. Please state your name and whether or not anyone is in the room with you. I'll start with myself. I'm Jerry Bell, the chair, and there is no one else in the room with me. Vice Chair Natalie Kurashima is excused. Commissioner Clark.
Aloha, Chair. My name is Matthew Clark. There is no one else in the room with me.
Thanks, Matt. Commissioner Hirano.
Aloha, kakahiaka, Kilohana Hirano. No one in the room with me as well.
Thank you, Kilo. Commissioner Kinney.
Hello, good morning. It's Aloha Kinney. No one is in the room with me.
Thank you. Commissioner Louie. I thought Nicole was online. Commissioner Spielman.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, you are there. Let's go back then to Commissioner Louie.
Yeah, there's no one in the room with me right now. My parents are sleeping still. So.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're
Commissioner
welcome.
Spielman.
Aloha, my name is Aaron Spielman and no one's in the room with me now, but my wife might walk through. She's my office manager.
Thanks, Aaron. I don't believe there are any other commissioners online. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Kamuela Plunkett, the Cultural Resources Commission planner, and I'd like to ask if he could introduce the staff.
Thank you, Chair. From the county attending the meeting, we have Director Zendo Kern, we have Secretary Kim Tanaka, we have CRC Staff Support Shauna Blackford, we also have Jean Campbell from Corporation Counsel, we also have Christian Kay from the Planning Division, and I think that is everyone.
Okay, thanks, Kamu. So members of the public who have registered to testify will join the meeting via Zoom, and statements will be taken at the time the agenda item is called to order. All written testimony received by the Planning Department for items on this agenda have been forwarded to the commission. Commissioners, staff, please verify if any members of the public have registered to provide verbal testimony and that all written testimony received has been distributed to all commissioners.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have 3 people in person in the Kona office that will be testifying from the public, and all written testimonies that came in as of yesterday has been distributed to the commissioners.
Great, thanks, Kamu. So I'm going to, at this time, let you introduce those individuals that are testifying in person.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. So we only have one business item today, and all the testifiers are for that business item. And we will begin with Elizabeth Dunn, and all testifiers in person have 3 minutes. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and good morning and aloha to the chair and members of the Cultural Resources Commission, staff, and various audience members. My name is Elizabeth Dunn. I live in the area of the Lalala Project, and when I was able to walk, I was walking through this area, so I feel relatively familiar with this site. My information is really centered on two critical items. When I was going through the staff report and the archaeological report for the Lalala Project, there's a wealth of deposits in this area, in this ahupua'a, from Hawaiʻi to Kuakini. For your kind of a ready graphic for you, because I know the archaeological report and the staff report are very dense. I included a series of graphics, and the first one that I'm referring to is, it's the figure 2 about the two sites in question that are Makai of Hawaiʻi. Then there's the what I call the paper road of the Kahului Kiahau Parkway, and then there are 4 different parcels to the east. The next page shows the location of deposits and artifacts that have already been found on 2 different parcels in the area. One is 77-210 Kapu Kapu. There is an active planning application on that site. Then there's about a 25-acre parcel in 2 parcels that has a large area of artifacts. And then there is something that's kind of a carve-out, but there is also another application at 776632A Kuakini, and that is pending an archaeological review of its own. So the purpose is to demonstrate the extent of the artifacts that exist in the area, and I would like there to be some, consideration on what that means for the Kona community to keep those artifacts in their current condition and not be relocated or preserved by some carve-out in a development project. And then the second point is that with the Lalala project itself, there is a parcel Makai that is intended for where a road has been approved by the planning department. That also seems like there is a level of development that will occur there. There's an implication in my mind that development has been approved with that road. Camuela just gave me the high sign, so I'll try to wrap up. At its planning commission in April, the planning commission had some really salient points that I thought. No members of the public who attended the Leeward Planning Commission were in favor of the proposal. The developer didn't work with any cultural or lineal descendants of this area. And the development team couldn't respond by a question of the chair if any of the lineal and cultural descendants were recognized for this project. Going forward, I'd formally like to ask the staff and the commission to make sure that lineal and cultural descendants are contacted to work directly with these kind of development applications, and this one in particular, and that when there is another project going forward, that the development proposal come to the Cultural Commission first before it goes to the Planning Commission. So that is my testimony, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Next up, we have Luis Herrera. So you have 3 minutes from when you start.
Thank you. I retired and moved here 3 years ago, and part of what I felt was important moving to a new area was to read up on some of the cultural things and that have happened, and I was aghast at finding out the amount of desecration that has happened with Hawaiian natives and their burial grounds and sacred sites, and this bothers me. I think that these cultural sites should be kept as sacred places, and to develop around them, next to them, on top of them, remove them, I think is a horrible thing to do. I think so much has happened to disturb burial sites and sacred places in the past that it would be a good I'm sorry if it didn't happen in the future. I don't see a development with housing where there are spots that aren't developed because they're burial sites is very respectful. And one thing that I think is happening here is that the Planning Commission gets these sites to okay for development before the cultural this body gets to discuss whether these sites should even be talked about as for planning. And then there's the aspect for me, in my area, water pressure is very low. I'm wondering why large developments are being okayed when there may not be water or garbage service or sewer services for it. I think so many sites have been already okayed that go beyond the capacity of the sewer department and the water delivery that it's absurd. You can't keep okaying sites for 50 and 25. I've been given the wrap it up sign. I just think that it's not very smart to okay sites that may not have water available or sewer services. This is a clean area. I'd like to keep it that way. So mostly this is about keeping sacred sites sacred. You know, I'm obviously not a native Hawaiian, but I think this is very, very important. And I'd like to see you do the right thing. And I think most of you will do the right thing. So I hope the vote goes the way it should. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. Okay, last in-person testifier is Claire Loprisi. Okay, Claire, your time is going to start when you begin.
And she gave me her 3 minutes, so that she's.
Oh, no. Sorry, that's not how it works.
Then we'll compromise. Okay. Aloha kako, Clara Loprisi, noho ana I ka honokahau iki malka, o vau I ka palekeki, kana kolu makihiki. This is my 50th year of helping babies being born. In the last 48 hours, I had 2 right here in Hawaiian homelands, another one a week before that. Helped many babies for 50 years. And that Kuakini wall, it's disgraceful that this is even being discussed. It's like heaven. It's like, I don't know any Hawaiian that works here that would feel comfortable for the ramifications of digging up the iwi. And if you don't know what that Kuakini wall and how many layers and the testimonies that have been there before, there needs to be an EIS. And I know that they missed the time on an EIS several years ago. And so this money for money and this profit and this desecration of lands, when you know that that area is so kapu. It's so kapu because it's lined up. And there's places around the world that are lined up. And that's why there's so many iwi and ki'i all together, and the ki'i and the iwi are always together. And so when you look at how the Kuakini wall is with the and that's the babies, that's the young ones, and there's ili Ili. You take out layers of generations to put the next one in. And to think that this is even a discussion is just heaven. And so I first of all think that if this is even at this place and the Planning Commission hasn't already shut this down for all the reasons that will be discussed, that you need to open up an EIS again so that you can remember, and especially if you come of this bloodline. Now, as a cultural practitioner, I'm already peely with all this, no matter where I go. This is my life. My kuleana is also to make sure that there's babies. I've done kahulumus. I've done plenty of babies that come, don't even need to write it. I've done plenty of babies that have come from those lines. And so when you look at the ramifications of what happens if you're not aware of generational trauma and cultural sensitivity and the effects of that on our children and many generations to come, this will have a deep effect. And we know that already. I mean, look at Hawaiian homelands right now. Look at how you pack in the native people in there. How many Hawaiians have left? 30,000 in this last pandemic. 30,000, and 30,000 have come in here as the developers. So as a developer, is that what you guys are here for? Are you here to make sure this Aina? If you look at the way that the first laws came, that all laws are based on, it's the relationship between Io, Kanaka, Aina. So what's sacred, what's the land and the human aspect, as opposed to development, or military development. You know, up in the mountain, it was TMT, university development. So you could say the planning department. You know, the money that people are making. And when you do your EIS, you need to make sure that the archaeologists are not paid off, and that they're on the right side. Because I've done births with archaeologists that just had to quit, because if they don't do it, then they're going to do it. They're going to lose their jobs. So do the right thing, because we will put some bodies down there. We will protect this area, just like we've done at the Mauna and every other place. So big mahalos, malama pono, and do them right. Okay.
Mahalo, Claire.
Yep.
So, Chair, that is all the in-person testimony. Right now, we're going to shift to the Zoom testimony. 1 second.
Rewatch this whole thing later.
It's going to be on YouTube. Yeah. You can email. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to transition to Zoom testimony at this time. So we are going to call in Shauna, do you see Jeannie Nahale Green?
No, she's not on here right now.
Okay, what about Janet Matlock?
Yes.
Okay, Janet, when you begin, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Aloha kakao. My name is Janet Matlock, and I'm a resident of Kailua Kona, and I live not far from the parcel being discussed today. I submitted written testimony to you already regarding the importance of looking across the entire surrounding area as a whole, not parcel by parcel, to understand what we are losing, including the potential desecration and destruction of the Great Wall of Kuakini. In my written testimony, I encouraged you to recognize that decisions made over a decade and a half ago on these parcels are no longer respectful, if indeed they ever were, of the myriad challenges we face as an island and as a world today. Kind of howly thing here, but I also want to briefly caution you and the Planning Commission and the County Council to consider carefully if this developer will really be able to follow through with whatever they promise. For example, I checked the County of Hawaii's property tax website, which showed that the landowner of this parcel and the property immediately Makai, which is the one with the Great Wall of Kuakini, they have been assessed penalties and interest on their taxes every year since 2018. And I bring this up because this was kind of questioned during the Planning Commission meeting. Okay, so that aside, I want to share a very few quotes from this. I don't know if you can see this or not. It was the front page. It's called the Hawaiʻi Mo'olelo. It is a collection of traditions and historical accounts from the Kahaluu Keho vicinity in Kona, Hawaii. This is actually a 102-page document, and it was prepared by Kepa Mali, a cultural historian and resource specialist, and I'm sure you're already quite familiar with his work. This particular document can be accessed at the Kohala Center's website. It begins with a discussion of the Heiau and chiefly residents of the Kahaluu Keho vicinity associated with Umi a Liloa, and it dates from about 1525. I'm going to jump ahead in time and to page 47, which is following the transcripts of Henry Kekahahuna and Theodore Kelsey, who were Native Hawaiian historians who wrote extensively in the 1940s and 1950s. At the end of this section of the document, Kepa Mali wrote in 2004, quote, in closing their article series, Kelsey and Kekahahuna offered the following words of advice and caution. Because so much of the cultural landscape has changed since the time of their original writing, the urgency of their words is more important now than ever before. Kepa then quotes their words written over 60 years ago. Quote, we hope that the people will cherish the things that should be preserved for themselves and for posterity, things which they now deliberately destroy or allow to perish, but for which in a very few years from now we will be clamoring. Let us awaken now, not later, lest our precious remnants of the past be lost forever. End quote. So I respectfully ask you again, for all these reasons, to please encourage the Planning Commission to deny the applications before you today. Mahalo nui loa for your time.
Thanks, Janet. Chair, I just want to, for the record, state that Commissioner Ku'ule Keakealani has come in, and I'll just ask her, Ku'ule, if you can state your name and mention if you have anybody in the room with you.
Hi, aloha pumehana kako. I'm Ku'ule Keakealani, and I do have my 2 daughters at home with me today. Mahalo anui.
Hi, mahalo. Okay, we will resume with Zoom testimony. Next is Peter Matlock.
All right. So thank you. Aloha to everyone. I thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony. My name is Peter Matlock. I do live in the Kailua Kona region, actually between close to Kaʻaluu. So again, I thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony. I am humbled by this chance to provide some thoughts. There are many things beyond my experience, so I want to focus on just a few things as follows. We know that this Kaʻaluu Keaho region is immensely rich in historical and cultural legacy, and we know that this legacy is being dismantled, destroyed, and lost to future generations in piecemeal fashion. Piece by piece, project by project, increment by increment, we are losing forever the place-based knowledge that is increasingly important to maintaining Hawaiian culture. And I don't mean to be presumptuous in saying that, but it's also important to the world's future and the well-being of coming generations. As you know, pre-contact Hawaiians lived sustainably for centuries on this land. They utilized astounding and ingenious approaches to sustain and feed themselves under difficult and often hostile conditions. And there are many examples of just how agriculture was practiced that astound people today. And so we can't emphasize that knowledge is critical, especially as climate change forces us to recognize serious flaws in our Western approaches. There is, in fact, growing and stated interest in learning alternative approaches to maintaining sustainable societies as informed by indigenous cultures and perspectives, which means that Hawaiian culture can be a key to saving the planet. And I can't emphasize that enough. This is a very widely recognized point. The knowledge of pre-contact Hawaiian culture is of course carried forward by families, but it is also, and again, I don't mean to be presumptuous, but it is embedded in the physical remains of pre-contact Hawaiian society that we see as being so richly abundant throughout the Ka'alu'u Keaho region and on this particular parcel in particular. Now, in the past, archaeological surveys that were conducted for development projects too often identified a few burial sites for preservation and allowed bulldozing of the rest. But there's an important point, and that is that archaeology has changed. I'm not an archaeologist, but I'm familiar with it. We know that archaeology is now interested in comprehensive understanding of a complete social, economic, and cultural system. The people, everybody matters now in the current perspective. That garden wall that was regarded as common and used to be dismissed and hence bulldozed is now a critical piece for understanding how everybody lived. And the important point is we have a growing number of tools to understand this, all right? We can even identify what people ate hundreds of thousands of years ago. So every year we get better tools to understand the past. This project area and the whole ahupua'a that extends Mauka is not just a collection of rocks and shrubs to be turned into homes that are unaffordable to locals. It is, as we've heard so many times, a rich and valued place. As burial sites, ancestral remains, and it is a direct window into pre-contact Hawaiian culture and society. It is a source of knowledge that's critical to all of our futures. And hence, I encourage you to please maintain this and the whole region. We have opportunities to protect an entire ahupua'a system, or nearly entire, the beach is gone. But this is a unique and valuable treasure. I appreciate your respect for it, and I thank you for the time to provide these thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I gotta test my sign out. Now it works.
I didn't see it, so I may have gone a little bit further, so I thank you for the extra time. Well,
Nobody's looking at.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter. Next up, we have Lokelani Mcmichael. So Loke, as soon as you start, your 3 minutes begin.
Aloha. My name is Lokelani.
Oh, okay, hold on. Is there a way?
Feedback through your own mic.
Can you try starting again?
Okay. Hi, my name is Lokelani Mcmichael, and I'm from Kona. I'd like to mahalo the Cultural Resources Committee for listening to us today and volunteering your precious time.
Hold on, Loke.
Okay.
Loke, I think you might have two computers or two devices in your space. And if that's the case, you're gonna have to turn off the speaker or the mic on one of those devices.
Oh. Okay. Is that better?
That's better, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll start. So I'd like to read something from the Archaeological Inventory Survey of this property, January 2006. The Archaeological Inventory Survey identified 14 sites with 172 features. The sites consist of 7 single feature sites and 7 complexes of features that contain 2 to 142 component features. The 172 identified features consist of 120 modified outcrops, 15 mounds, 14 platforms, 8 enclosures, 5 terraces, 5 walls, 3 pavements, 1 lava blister, and 1 walled platform. Functionally, the features are interpreted as agricultural, permanent habitation, burial, ceremonial, and livestock control, all of which is subsurface testing. So there's most definitely more. I visited the property a few years ago with Auntie Lily Ha'anio and my Auntie Peahi and my mom. And we actually saw a bulldozer on the site. And per the neighbor said that they got rid of some of the EVs or all of the EVs. I also went there with my friend Tiare Makai, and we saw someone which it looked like they were by the wall, and they had a tent and a chair, and I don't know if they were dismantling the wall at the time or what they were doing, but there was someone there. Lily, Auntie Lily, before she passed away, she wanted to go here because it is part of the National Historic Registry. The south end is where we went and we prayed all together. Later that day, we went to the Kahalu, where Kamehameha Schools is making a park. And we prayed there also. I think it's really important today that we need a new archaeological study here, something more recent than 2006, and preferably by an independent archaeologist, not one hired by the developer. It is part of the Royal Center, the 7 Royal Centers from Kamokuhonu to Honau now. We need a burial treatment plan. We need to know what was bulldozed. If the wall was destroyed, it needs to be repaired. What is the data recovery plan that's going to be laid out by SHPD? And when I testified on May 11th and went through the paperwork, there was no mention of Site 6302, the Great Wall of Kuakini, that has now been proposed as the access from Ali'i Drive. And this is what's different about the permit that was granted in 2006. They changed the access to Ali'i Drive from Nani Loa by the Queen Kalama Road. And that access is they want to destroy 50 feet of the Great Wall of Kuakini. You know, this is my first time testifying at a Cultural Resources Committee meeting, but it is my second time defending the Great Wall of Kuakini for another access. You know, next door is being preserved, so I don't see why this isn't being preserved. It should be preserved. And people who testified at the Kahalu meetings testified that there were burials in the wall. That wall meets all the archaeological criteria, A, B, C, D, and E is very scarcely given.
Look, you're running over your time, so if you can wrap up, please.
Well, can my mom jump on? I'm good. Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah,
Can she
I'll
jump
call
on
her.
on my computer? Because hers is off.
Okay.
She's
Yeah,
with me.
Simi, as soon as you start your clock, we'll start.
Okay, mahalo. Okay.
Mahalo, Loke.
Okay, can you hear me? This is Simi.
Yes.
Okay. Aloha. I am Simi Mcmichael. I'm a Kanaka Maoli, born in the territory of Hawaiʻi. First of all, I would love to mahalo Michael Vatusik for suggesting CRC. The first time I attended CRC was April 13, 2016. I was to protect the adjacent 42 acres of this parcel, stopping 306 timeshares. At this meeting, Teresa Dunham, who worked for State Historic Preservation as Archaeology Branch Chief, the minutes on page 16, 17, 18, she went into detail regards to the National Register nomination form and the boundaries that would extend northern end of the parcel 4, which would include the entire project area. There is a reason why the area has not been developed. It is what's there. Stated on the AIS of this project, page 60, the data from the project area, including the presence of the permanent habitation sites, burials, possible heiau, indicate that proposed coastal strip was wider in the project area and the vicinity nearly 150 m wider than the proposed. The project area is adjacent to the large concentration of residential, ritual, and burial sites in the seaward portion of the Kahalu'u and Keoho'ahupua'a to the south. This concentration is a reflection of the Royal Center, and that was present at the coast, and the concentration of habitation, ritual, and burial features in the seaward portions of the area was part of this large settlement. Important to mention, like in 2016, Teresa brought up the fact why the Great Wall of Kuakini was left out of the agenda, 75 feet of destruction. Oh, because it was on the Makai lot. It was separate for a driveway. Hanaho, once again, not mentioning you're going to destroy 50 feet of the Great Wall of Kuakini, site 6302, which is now a historical site. Not just a wall, but it's a monument. So why not mentioning it again? Oh, it was stated that this is allowed by SHPT as a minor SMA permit. Excuse me, minor ikalamai. This is a major issue, and we need to have this stopped. Why a mainland developer from California comes to our historic preservation district, destroys our sacred cultural sites for nothing but money, kala. We need to protect our sacred land, respect our ancestors, and save for all the next generation. This is of the national historic. Okay, I'm going to brief this one because this was brought to my site. This has supernatural factors. Kahalu is known. Okay, so I want to bring up sensitive resources, policy NV1 1.5. Archaeological and historical sites shall be considered sensitive and therefore shall be inventoried as part of the permit application to the county planning department. Any permit application shall strive to incorporate these resources as assets. If the proposed project will have a significant, unavoidable adverse impacts to any of the above resources, the presumption shall be denial of the application. So please, please deny this application for the sake of our Aina. Mahalo.
Thank you, Simi.
Please,
I'm going to take a break from the testimony just to go back to Loke. One of the commissioners asked, what was the date that you saw the bulldozer go on the land? And now's not a time for discussion, so Loke, if you can just provide the date.
We don't know the date. Oh man, it's in my old phone. I think it was 2019.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. And thank you, Simi.
Mahalo. There's a few people that can't get on to register here. It's Tiare Makayo and Auntie Cookie. They're having problems registering.
Okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Mahalo.
Okay. We got to move on.
Mahalo.
Okay. Next testifier, Antu Harvey.
Good morning. Chairman Bell and Cultural Resource Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Antu Harvey, and I live in Holualoa 2, Mauka, and I am the president of Pulama Iokona Heritage Preservation Council. I would like to, besides the concerns about the inadequate infrastructure questions that came up before the Planning Commission about the additional density in this area with evacuation problems, sewer system problems, water system, we're even on a notification to reduce 25% in Kolokomauka. We lost another well. And down here, down to Keoho, I believe we're in a 10% reduction notice. And inadequate schools, and that these suburbs are requiring vehicles to go to anywhere, and our inadequate roads. I'm nervous. But before the Cultural Resources Commission, I really want to express three concerns, my three greatest concerns. One is I'm not aware of adequate consultation with the lineal descendants. and 2, nor involving archaeologists to update the 20-year-old survey, as been mentioned before, and 3, nor adequate kuleana re the 1830 pa Kuakini. This, the wall is not on this parcel. As you know, it's on 77008001 Makai, but this plan is, as has been mentioned, that an access road is to be breaching the wall to get to Ali'i Drive. And the wall was originally about 6 miles long. The county has repeatedly allowed it to be breached many times for development. Does the county, 1, does the county have a map with GIS layers of the wall and across all the TMKs? And 2, does the county track each approved breach in its cumulative impact? 3, have segments been deemed to be preserved and not allow any breaching? 4, is the county monitoring the preservation plans already in place and their compliance over time, like SIHP Site 6302 and like University of Nations development, as well as others? And or will the CRC, the Planning Commission, the County Council, and the Mayor continue to be complicit in the piecemeal destruction of pa Kuakini until there is nothing left? Please, as a precondition of moving forward, if it can't be stopped altogether, evaluate the wall in its entirety in the impact of destruction of 55 feet, thank you, for this development. If a breach is allowed, that it be minimal, that restoration be done, that preservation be done to compensate, and that they require the preservation plans to be monitored. We have to stop the destruction of this and other precious sites for our future. Mahalo for your time and service.
Thank you, Antu. Next up, as far as I know, our last Zoom testifier is Tiare Makayo.
Aloha, I'm Tiare Mcmichael. I'm against the destruction of the Kuakini wall, like Loki said. Actually, it was August 2017 that I walked that wall, and there was a blue tarp with a chair, and there is a breach in the wall already. It was deep in the bush, and it was broken. They were already taking it apart and restacking it. I did have a picture of it. That phone broke, but I'm sure we can find it because I sent it to Auntie Simi when these developers first wanted to develop that area. That's when we walked alongside the wall and we saw the breach. So there was a lot of shady things going on. I also have Auntie Jeannie Nahale Green with me because she didn't know how to sign into the Zoom, so she's gonna be giving testimony, but I'm completely against destruction of the wall and development for profit. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, here's Auntie Green.
Aloha, my name is Jeannie Nahale Green. I'm against the destruction of Kuakini Wall. Kahalu is sacred to me and my family. Ohana, and me and nor my sisters knew about anything.
Auntie Jeannie grew up in that area. She's a direct descendant. She, yeah, she does not want this either. That's it. Thank you.
Mahalo, Tiare, and Auntie. Sana, based on our list, do we have any other Zoom testifiers?
Okay, he said
No, we don't have any more online testifiers.
Okay. Thanks. I'm going to ask that all the Zoom testifiers, if you don't mind, please log in off of the Zoom and watch the rest of the meeting on the YouTube stream. Really appreciate your folks' participation. With that, Chair, please resume. You gotta unmute.
Thanks, Kamu. I'd like to say mahalo to all of the testifiers, both online and written. So I'd like to move on to this morning's business item. And it's the Hawaii One Investors LLC's amendment to change of zone ordinance number 098 and special management area use permit number 07024 related to a proposed 65 lot single family residential subdivision on parcel 377008121 Pahoehoe First, Kapala Alaya, Second, North Kona, Hawaii. On May 10, 2022, the planning director forwarded a request from the Leeward Planning Commission to the CRC for consultation by way of review, comments, and/or recommendations consistent with CRC Rule 4-3B. At this time, I'd like to ask for introductions of the project coordinators.
Okay. I'll just introduce, or maybe I'll introduce Darren Arai.
Okay.
He's on behalf of Hawaii One Investors LLC. And Darren, if you don't mind introducing yourself and the rest of your team.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you, Kamu. Good morning, Chair Bell and members of the Cultural Resources Commission. My name is Darren Arai. I'm a land use planning consultant assisting the applicant Hawaii One Investment LLC with their request before the Leeward Planning Commission for a time extension to both the SMA and change of zone for the property that supports this proposed subdivision, as well as an amendment to Condition K regarding the possibility of bonding options for the drainage improvements required by the subdivision. Joining me online today is Mr. Matt Monsi. He is the project manager for Hawaii One Investments. Also joining us online is Ken Van Bergen, who is one of their consultants. Dr. Alan Hahn, who is the consulting archaeologist for this project, is also joining us today. And sending his regrets is Sydney Fouquet, who has been assisting us on this matter before the Leeward Planning Commission. Unfortunately, he is not able to join us today due to prior commitments. Chair Bell, would it be okay if I sort of just provide a summary of what's pending before the Leeward Commission and before you and the nature of the request by the Leeward Planning Commission? I'm sorry, I think you're muted.
Sure.
Okay, Darren, first of all, one of our commissioners has a disclosure. And Matt, if you'd just like to summarize in a sentence or two.
Aloha. Yes, my name is Matthew Clark. I work for ASM Affiliates. The company I work for previously prepared the archaeological preservation plan and archaeological monitoring plan for the Makai parcel, parcel 1, where the road will go through. I did not personally work on the project. I had no prior knowledge of it. I have not been on the property, but we do work for Ken Van Bergen, who is here. So I wanted to disclose that. I went through the county code of conduct, and I do not believe that it's a conflict of interest. Mahalo.
Thank you, Matt. All right, Darren, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The focus of the request before the Leeward Planning Commission is basically for a 5-year extension of time in order to complete and secure final subdivision approval for the 62 lot single family residential subdivision, consisting of lots ranging from about 3,000 to about 6,500 square feet in size. Also, as I mentioned earlier, second part of the amendment request was amendment to Condition K, which focused more on providing the opportunity to bond the proposed or required drainage system improvements along with the other improvements that are typically afforded the opportunity to be bonded in order to secure final subdivision approval. So in the 7 years since the applicant purchased the property in 2013, they have accomplished much towards completing the subdivision as approved by the Hawaii County Council. And that included the approval of a planned unit development permit in 2016, the preparation and issuance of a finding of no significant impact for the Lalala Park in 2018, and that was a conditional requirement of their permits. They purchased and secured SMA approval for the Makai property in order to provide a secondary access directly out to Ali'i Drive. They also secured tentative subdivision approval for phase 1 of the project, consisting of 18 lots. And finally, and most importantly, they did secure final approval for a burial treatment plan and data recovery plan from SHPE, and that was accomplished in 2017. So as we demonstrated, you may not have seen a lot of activity on the ground itself, but there has been a lot of soft work that has been accomplished in the 7 years that the applicant has maintained ownership of the project site. And the amendments are necessary in order for the applicant to go ahead and secure seek out additional funding in order for them to accomplish a proposed subdivision. And that is why the request is currently before the Leeward Planning Commission. As Chair Bell summarized, the Leeward Planning Commission at its April 21st meeting basically questioned whether the level of consultation with lineal descendants in the planning of the overall project was sufficient, and whether lineal descendant access issues have been fully considered by SHPE and resolved in the burial treatment plans. And finally, whether the additional lineal descendant access and open space requirements should be proposed to mitigate or minimize project impacts upon the overall cultural landscape. So if you bear with me, I wanted to kind of briefly try to hit those 4 major points as requested by the Leeward Planning Commission. First of all, the project site is not situated within the Kahulu Historic District, and that was confirmed with the Planning Department. An archaeological inventory survey was prepared by Hahn and Associates in 2006 and accepted by SHPE, and it mentioned the 14 sites that were identified significant for information content and 9 sites for mitigation to data recovery, as well as 2 sites for preservation. As I mentioned earlier, the final data recovery plan has been completed and accepted, as well as the burial treatment plan has been done likewise. A cultural assessment study was prepared by Kaimi Pono Consulting Services in 2006, and it was revised in October of 2007. And we apologize that the report itself was provided to you late yesterday afternoon. We realized just prior to the meeting that reference to this cultural impact study was made within the application that was provided to the Leeward Planning Commission, and it was also referenced within the planning director's favorable recommendation on both the SMA and rezoning applications, but the report itself was not actually part of it. And we apologize, we suddenly realized that, which is why the report itself was transmitted to you late yesterday afternoon, because we knew it was critical to the deliberations that we'll be having today. So again, our apologies for that oversight. But with that being said, the study did conclude that while evidence of ancient or traditional cultural practices still exists on the project lands, that there does not appear to be any evidence of any ongoing traditional cultural practices, except perhaps fishing, which, while not directly impacted by the project, may indirectly impact this resource. So that was a finding of the cultural impact study. The applicant themselves are not aware of any evidence demonstrating any traditional and customary native Hawaiian rites being practiced on the project site or nearby area, nor existence of any known valued cultural, historical, native resources within the project site, such as flora that are particularly desired or used for cultural practices. A second point of the Leeward Planning Commission was whether the level of consultation with lineal descendants in the planning of the overall project was sufficient. We would like to note that legal public notices regarding the burials that were located on the property was published 3 times in the Honolulu Star Advertiser as well as the West Hawaii Today. And this was back in July of 2016. And also in Kawaiola in August 2016. There are no Kuleana awardees that we know about for within the project site. In January of 2017, only one descendant responded to the notice and was placed in contact with SHPE to obtain a descendancy application. Prior to that notice, an earlier notice was issued in 2007 that resulted in Clarence Medeiros being confirmed by SHPE as a descendant of these lands and especially of the burials, individuals buried within the project site. The cultural assessment, as one of its findings and recommendation, stated that the Kahulamu and Nahale Ohana, whose ancestors are from these lands, be afforded the opportunity to have a walkthrough of the project site prior to any bulldozing and raiding activities. So that was a specific recommendation of the study. And finally, the late Josephine Nahale Kamoku of the Nahale Ohana and Hiram Rivera of the Kahulamu Ohana were consulted in preparation of the cultural assessment study. Others that participated as consultants include Wadi Green, Clarence Medeiros, and Mahealani Pai, just for information. The third point is whether lineal descendant access issues have been fully considered by SHPE and resolved in a burial treatment plan. The final burial treatment plan that was accepted by SHPE did indicate that access to the burials for appropriate cultural activities will be permitted to any lineal and or cultural descendant formally recognized by the Hawaii Island Burial Council and by SHPE. If the descendants wish to visit these burial sites, they would need to coordinate with landowners and at least provide them with 24-hour notice prior to accessing these burial sites. And that was again part of the burial treatment plan. And finally, the last point that was raised by the Leeward Planning Commission is whether additional lineal descendant access and open space requirements should be proposed to mitigate or minimize project impacts upon the overall cultural landscape. That is the question that was specifically directed to the CRC by the Leeward Planning Commission based on the voluminous information that is currently on the record and that has been provided to all of you commissioners. And on behalf of the applicant, we believe that years of studies and mitigation, years of studies that were conducted and mitigation plans that were developed and prepared under the direction and guidance of the County Council, the Planning Commission, Planning Department, SHPE, and the Hawaii Island Burial Council have demonstrated that this project will not have a significant adverse impact upon the overall cultural landscape within this portion of North Kona. So with that, myself and the rest of our team stand ready to hopefully address any questions or comments that you have of us. So I appreciate you being patient with your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Would anyone else on your team like to add any comments?
Chair, really quick.
Yes.
I just learned of another commissioner that wants to make a disclosure. So that will be Kilohana.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, Kilo.
Mahalo. Just in all transparency, I heard Mr. Arai mention that Sydney Fuke was a consultant as well on the project. And again, in transparency, Sydney is my uncle. But to be clear that he and I have not talked about this, we have not had any communication on this. So there is not a conflict. I just wanted to be transparent in case it does come up later that someone recognizes that my last name is Hirano and his wife's maiden name is Hirano. Thank you.
Thank you, Kito.
Chair, I'd like to address the commission if I can.
Sure.
Aloha, Chair and commission members. I just wanted to bring up a couple items that were brought up during public testimony and just kind of clarify a couple things. It can be a little confusing with the two different parcels. The original ordinance was for parcel 121, and that was the 62 home subdivision. During the ordinance, or in the ordinance, one of the conditions allowed for two accesses to the subdivision, one off Naniloa and then the second off of Ali'i Drive. So at a later date, we had negotiated an easement with the previous owner of parcel 1, John Metzler, and that's what created the easement off Ali'i Drive. And then after that, maybe a year later, we actually the owners purchased that parcel, so they now own it. The reason I bring that up is we did have a grubbing permit in 2018, so it was bulldozed parcel 121 illegally. We hired a cultural monitor that was on site during all activities. Prior to the equipment being located to the property, we hand cleared the two burial sites as via the burial plan and put up the 70-foot construction fencing and so forth. So we followed all the protocols, but the land was cleared in 2018. On parcel 1, where the Kuakini wall is, it was brought up, it was desecrated and there was a blue tent. When the easement was created, also in 2018, I believe, we had it surveyed. The surveyors were there to survey the easement, and that's why the blue tent was there, and they were working on the easement. They also did a south boundary assessment. But that's the only work that was done on parcel 1 was the surveyors. So I just wanted to clarify that for any of the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should have asked you to state your name, but I know you're Ken Van Burby. Thank you, Ken. Anyone else? Thank you. At this time, I'm going to open up the meeting for any questions, comments, etc., from the commissioners. Well, I'd like to start by asking one question. I did not get to see the burial treatment plan, but I believe the burial treatment plan does include a list of lineal and cultural descendants. And if there were any attempts besides the newspaper articles to contact these individuals. Maybe Darren can answer that.
Yeah, I am not aware that if there were any additional efforts to contact descendants. We do have Dr. Alan Hahn, and we would like to see if maybe he can respond to that question.
Right. Where's Alan?
I'm here. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Dr. Hahn. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
Other than the newspaper ads, I believe we had one individual, I can't recall, who was identified as a potential descendant, and that individual, I provided them with a copy of this burial treatment plan back in, I believe, March of 2017, and got no further comment from him. But it's also, I think, important to notice, in the obtaining approval of the burial treatment plan, we actually had to attend 3 meetings, one in November of 2016 and then in April, as well as May. And this, the fact that we had not had many or any descendants come forward in response to the notices was aware to the burial council members, and they took I think, extra effort in reviewing the plan and in going over the various treatments to sort of make up for that lack of descendant input. At any rate, so there were other individuals that were present in those meetings who also provided comment, and all of the plan itself underwent 3 revisions associated with those 3 meetings, and during that process, other descendants, or at least potential descendants, were able to get their information or their requests recognized. And in most cases, like I said, the plan, there were changes in the layout of the subdivision and other efforts that came about as the result of the input gathered during those meetings. So there were a number of individuals. I would have to go back through the meeting minutes to be able to enumerate those folks.
So there was interest, other than, I believe, Clarence Medeiros was recognized as a lineal descendant, but there were others that probably came forward as
Correct.
Cultural descendants. And I believe we received in written testimony a letter from an individual, I believe it was a woman, who identified herself as a lineal descendant. And I'm sure you'll be able to get a hold of that letter, that testimony, as it'll be posted on the website, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Questions from our commissioners?
I have a question, Chair.
Go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to, actually, this is for Ken. You mentioned that in 2018, parcel 121 was grubbed. Is that what I heard?
Yes, it could be possibly 2017, but I believe it was early 2018.
Okay.
But it definitely wasn't 2019.
And that was the entire parcel, or the area where the subdivision will go, with excluding the preservation sites, obviously.
Yeah, they grubbed most of the 11 acres outside of the construction fencing around the burial areas.
And there was an archaeological monitor present.
Yeah, actually, we hired Alan Hahn's office, and they assigned a monitor. The monitor was there when the equipment was running at all times.
All right. And thanks. Based on that, Alan, I guess this question would be for you. I saw the data recovery plan that was prepared. What is the status of the data recovery report and the monitoring report? We weren't provided with copies of those, and maybe you could just briefly discuss the findings and let us know the status.
The data recovery plan was implemented, and the field work was completed in 2017. We at that time requested a 2-step verification process, wherein SHPD acknowledges that the field work is complete and permits on-site construction to begin, with the commitment that the report will be submitted in the future. Anyway, they agreed to that, and the report has subsequently been completed. And as soon as we can get as soon as we can get it mated with the proper number under SHPD's new system here, it will be on their desk for their review. The data recovery work during the original inventory survey, we did, I think, 23 square meters of testing. And then during the data recovery work, we did another 16 square meters of testing. So, or of mitigation excavations, actually. And that work was focused on the habitation sites that are primarily in the seaward portion of the parcel. as well as a couple of excavations in some of the agricultural features. We got a rather small inventory of portable remains from those excavations, but nevertheless enough to indicate that there was at least obviously habitation activity, although it seemed like it was transient. It was not the kind of material that you'd normally see with a typical permanent habitation site. So our interpretation of permanent habitation, which was really based on the earlier Cordy model, was modified a bit to suggest that it wasn't the full-on permanent habitation type of site, or these are not. And dating results indicate that the activity falls within primarily the 16 and 1700s. So that's the status of the data recovery work, which essentially is essentially complete. The monitoring work, the monitoring is a little bit different. It's not being guided by a monitoring plan. The SHPD didn't call for a monitoring plan. The work actually was done in response to requests received during the burial treatment plan hearings. And this was acknowledged by SHPD. And we have not as yet completed a report on that. We're waiting until there's still more work to be done at some point in the future. But we did not make any discoveries during the monitoring that we did do. So I mean, at this point, it would be monitoring with negative findings. But still, that will be memorialized at some point in a formal report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Kealoha, I understand you have your hand up. I only can see half of you anyway.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I just had a question to kind of follow up on the summary that Darren gave, and also on clarify a point in the cultural resource assessment. And I guess one of those things was, you mentioned that a walkthrough of the site was going to be provided to the Mahali family, and it wasn't clear to me in the reading. Maybe I missed it, but did that actually happen? And what were the results of that, if it did?
Personally, I'll need to refer to either Matt or Ken to see if that occurred. That was, as far as I understand now, based on Ken's presentation, that there was some grubbing that occurred. Grubbing, if I remember correctly, Ken mentioning, right? So I'm not sure if any actual grading actually occurred. So maybe that needs clarification. But my understanding, it was simply, what I mentioned was simply a recommendation that came out of the cultural impact assessment.
Right. Right. Yeah, I was just wondering if they had that opportunity to walk through the area prior to the grubbing or anything like that. If that happened for the lineal descendants. I know it was a recommendation in there, but all right. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I would just add that prior to the grubbing, none of the parcel was really walkable. It's quite overgrown with guinea grass and shrubs and trees. So it would have been very impractical to do any kind of walkthrough until it was cleared.
All right, thank you.
Ken. Commissioners, anyone else with questions?
Aloha mai kako. I'm Ku'ulei again. Thanks for everyone who testified and the elevation of your voices to things that are important and things for us to contemplate and consider as best and thorough as we can. I guess I have a couple of comments, maybe questions. And so there's a bunch, so I'm just kind of going to go through this little list that I have. In getting the document last night, I was able to review just a little bit, but something caught my eye right on page 3, or Roman numeral 3, I guess it was, right up front. And it was italicized, and so boom, that grabbed my eye as well. And it talked about the level of effort, and that in the level of effort, it was limited cultural and historical background review. That already stirred in me great concern. And it kind of made me extremely cautious as I go through the rest of the document. If something already is deemed and laid down on this paper in these words that says that it was limited, or the level of effort was limited, I think I advocate for the exact opposite of that. For any of these, no matter what's done on what aina, where, that it never be limited, but it be extensive and expansive to the extent that it can be. Then I saw 5 oral histories. Most of those individuals are connected to my genealogy. So I guess that might be, I don't know if it's a disclosure or of my ohana connection to that place. And in that light, and as this is the Cultural Resource Commission, it's a little odd for me to offer up genealogy in this format, in this way, but to bring in the kupuna of my genealogy into this space, I do so as such. Or kahilina ke kane, or kahenihi kawahine noho pula wa hanau mailo o na aho nui ke kane. O ka iki ho o kamaka. Kawahine noho pula wa hanau mailo. Io kapaka na aho ke kane. O nune kawahine. Noho pula wa hanau mailo o ke ola na aho he wahine. O ke ola na aho ka wahine o ke akialani ke kane. Noho pula wa hanau mailo o Robert ka mohoali I ke akialani he kane. O Robert ka mohoali I ke akialani ke kane. O Margaret ke ano maunu ke ave ka wahine. Noho pula wa hanau maila o Robert ka muala ke akialani he kane. O Robert ka muala ke akialani ke kane. O Carol Thompson ka wahine. Noho pula wa hanau maila o Roberta Ku'ulei ke akialani. O vau o Roberta Ku'ulei ke akialani. Eyala. O Kamalo ke kane. O nune ka wahine. Noho pula wa hanau maila o Malanui he kane. O kaua koe ke ali'i wahine o ia wahi o ka halu unei. O wau ka pua o ia mau kupuna. Ke ia mau inoa I hapai ia me ka pili aina, pili koko no hoi I ke ia aina o ka halu uma. O kona akau elua. Eyala ua ikia. Another thought that I had was I see in the study a ranching, right? The ranching time, ranching era, if you will. There's a kind of small list of ranches. I also see, right, that Uncle Hiram was consulted with Uncle Hiram's brother, Uncle Wayne Kahulamu, and my own father, Sonny Kakialani, I believe might be 2 of the remaining Pu'ua'awa'a Ranch cowboys. So I would say at that time, perhaps a consultation could have, should have, would have, and again, they are still with us, my dad and Uncle Wayne Kahulamu. So perhaps an outreach, an extension to see if they would even be willing to do an oral history interview. And I guess that might be my thoughts for now, is that was quite bothersome for me just to see that word limited. And that's just not sufficient. In this day and time, heightened awareness where we are culturally in it all. I'm just not comfortable to proceed with anything with a limited level of effort. Mahalo anui.
Thank you, Kule, mahalo. Anyone else that have any comments? I see, Kealoha, is your hand up?
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I saw it.
Yeah. Mahalo. Yeah, I just wanted to mahalo Kule for those comments, and I just wanted to also kind of follow along in that thread that and maybe one of the planning team members for this this organization could speak to this, but I was wondering why adjacent Ahupua'a lineal descendants weren't contacted in this. Like, for example, the Kipapa families, which are, just 0.5 miles down the road. I know that there was some testimony from them that was given, and yeah, I was just wondering if maybe that's an archaeological issue. Maybe you just stick within one specific area, but it seemed like it was limited, as Ku'ule said, in terms of who was contacted and the breadth of information that was gathered from those folks, and I guess going further than that. If you could go back and improve it, like what would you envision improving? So I would just kind of throw that question out to you folks, because this issue seems to be a persistent comment that this development is faced with.
Thank you, Commissioner Kinney. Chair Bell, is it okay if I just make a quick statement?
That's fine, Darren.
Thank you. I assume, Commissioner Kinney, that you're speaking directly to the cultural impact assessment more so than the burial treatment, right? Okay.
That's correct.
And again, our apologies. The assessment study was done in 2007. We did try to see if we could have the author of that study present with us today. And unfortunately, she's not able to join us today. So again, at this point, all we can do is rely on the study as presented and its finding and its recommendation. I can't. We're not in a position, none of us on the team are in that position to sort of like roll back time and try to make irresponsible assumptions of why something was or was not done. So I think it would be, we do appreciate the comments that you made though about whether additional outreach was made to other descendants joining Ahupua'a. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Any other comments, commissioners? Nicole, go ahead.
Hi. Okay. I don't know how to start off, but I was recognized as a cultural descendant to Kapala Alaya. And that's how you say it, Kapala Alaya, okay? Or Kapala Alaya, in 2010. And that descent was made from Kayama. Kayama, I noticed here a little, I think it was an LCA, but at the corner of that bottom lot where the access road is gonna go through. So yeah, so I am a cultural descendant to that Aina. I think I should be a lineal descendant, but getting back to what Ken said earlier about the land being too rough for too much guinea grass. Before, back in the, 2009, 2010, when Analu Josephidis was a burial specialist, He would work alongside with the archaeologists, and archaeologists would actually go into the property, clear a path, and he can make way for the descendants to go through and do a walkthrough. So I cannot say that cannot do that because the land too rough, or maybe the younger generation can go through and see the process. And then the kupuna can be on the side, or can help the kupuna go through certain parts of the property. So to say that it cannot be done is no. I think that walkthrough should have been done. And I'm finding out that I guess it wasn't done because the answer wasn't given when Kealoha asked. So another thing was, so right now, I guess I'm getting consulted. So I can see that I'm getting consulted right now. But I'm sharing my mana'o as part of my family. Kai'ama is my fourth great-grandfather, great-grand-uncle. He was married to my fourth great-grand-aunt, Lo'e. Lo'e was the sister of Kinimaka. Kiawe Amahi Kinimaka. Kiawe Amahi Kinimaka is the father of Kiakaonali'i Wahine. And she gave hanau to Kaele Makule. And he was born in the Ahupua of Kaumalumalu, not too far away from Kapala'alaia. And so Lo'e and Kaiama had lands in Hololoa 4, Hololoa 3. Wait, I take that back. So Hololoa, and she was given the Ahupua after her husband passed away. That's when they started breaking the Ahupuas down into Hololoa 1, 2, 3, 4. So during the time of the Mahele. But anyway, so that is my connection to Kapala'alaia. And another question was, where you folks got the name La'ipala? Ken, can you answer that? And then when we got the report yesterday, wait, I take that back. We got the report for the CIA and they spelled it correctly. La'ipala. And that, to me, that means yellow tea leaf. So I don't know, I just, when I was reading through the planning department's background report, it kept mentioning La'ipala. And I was like, what is La'ipala? Because La'i is calm, peaceful, serene. Pala is like rubbish, or like the soft of a boil, or that's what it says in the dictionary, or the yellow of a melon, or the yellow of a leaf. So I couldn't understand what you guys was talking about, La'ipala. So when I got the report, the CIA yesterday, and I was reading through it, and I noticed the title was La'ipala. So I guess yellow tea leaf is the name of your guys' subdivision. That's just my mana'o. And then the other one I wanted to share was Kapala'alaia. So in the planning department's background report, under number 28, archaeological history, cultural resources. But the diacritical stay in the wrong place. The one that Mike couldn't pronounce them when he was all confused. So, and then get North Kona, North Kana instead of North Kona. I think planning department should be more aware and proofread this stuff. Look at the report, put in the diacriticals in the right place. Because when you go back and we going to reference this, it's not going to be good. And I wouldn't want to reference this. And, it's these kind of things to me, it's like folks don't care about the Hawaiian culture or our language. We got to read through these things. We got to proofread. We got to make sure everything is in the right place. Okay, what else I get? So can you guys say Kapala Alaya? Can you say Kapala Alaya? Matt?
Yes, I can.
Okay, try Kapala Alaya. Please, okay, you sound correctly. Okay. Wait, I'm not done yet. Kapala is to stain, print, and stamp. Alaya is the aqueous earth used for coloring salt, for dyeing, and red coloring matter. Also used for purification ceremony. Kapala Alaya is also the name of a god that was carried during the Makahiki festivals. So that makes this ahupua even more sensitive, culturally sensitive to the Hawaiian people. Some of the descendants, the Nahales, I know some of them, the younger generation, they said that this ahupua get a high level of spiritual occurrences happening in this ahupua. So, but I'll leave that for them to talk about. But that's another thing. So we have to, folks have to be aware of all of this. And I don't think enough consultation was done. So yeah, and I think even like the CIA needs to be updated. Wonderful people. I love Auntie Josephine. I was saddened by her hala, and Uncle Clarence Medeiros is my own cousin through Henry Clark. His kupuna married Henry Clark first, and then my kupuna married Henry Clark after. And that's how Kaile Makule come. So yeah, I get plenty connections to this Aina and to the people. And I also wanted to share that I think that CIA needs to be updated. You guys need to do more consultation. And also with the CIA, I noticed there was a little mention about Kiawenui Umi. And but no mention of the battle between him and his brother, Keli Okaloa Umi. And they fought that battle on the plains of Kanoinoi. The plains of Kanoinoi is at Kiahu'olu. And Kiahu'olu is the last ahupua coming south of the Kekaha lands. So Ohikohia, Tautau o Napu, Mai Kiahua Lono, Ikia o Kaniku, Ahoea, Ikikula o Kanoinoi, Ikapu o Kaloa. So that's where Kaloa died on that pu at Kiahu'olu, the Queen Lokelani's trust lands. Pu'okaloa is also noted for its bringing the clouds and the mist that would settle on that pu'u, letting the farmers of the sweet potato know that it was time to plant uala. And if he wasn't in Kona at the time and you asked for uala, they're going to ask, where were you? And if he was in Kohala, they go, oh, they're going to give you sweet potato. If he wasn't, he was in Kona and he didn't look at the signs, then they're not going to give you sweet potato because that means you're lazy. So in this sense, lazy, not enough consultation. So I'm going to just say that, yeah, I think more consultation should be done. The planning department background report needs to be corrected if can. And let's see. Okay. I get plenty, you know. I get plenty to talk about. Also, in the nature of requests. Okay, so the street will be named Pi'ilani Street. Already, you folks already broke through the Kuakini wall. Is that my understanding?
No, no one broke through the Kuakini wall. Upon acquisition, the wall was already breached. So I have no idea when the actual was breached. It was a long time ago.
Okay. In my when I was the cultural monitor for the Anikihokalole Highway, they had to breach part of the wall. I'm not saying that this is what should be happening, but I am saying that when the construction was going to have to remove about 10 feet of the wall. So working alongside with the descendants, it's Ruby McDonough, they all passed away already. And Etihana Reeves and some of the other descendants, my mom and my dad. What we formed with Teresa Dunham was to take those rocks of the 10 feet of the Kuakini wall that was going to be removed and repurpose it in another section of the wall that had been, the rocks were stolen by Rockwall. They're assuming Rockwall builders behind McDonald's. And so the rocks were all transported and we had to get to that area. And then the wall was repurposed with those stones from that. So what I'm saying is we have to look at all of that too. If you're gonna breach the wall, save the rocks, not take them and just put them in a pile somewhere or destroy them or just remove it off the land. I think those rocks should be repurposed if that's gonna happen. But I'm just sharing my manao and I don't know. I think consultation needs to be updated. And that's all I got to say about that right now.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
Yes, Chair, I have another one.
Matt?
I think, well, it might help for some of the commissioners because I believe looking at the CIA and also the Dunn recovery plan, they were prepared for maybe different projects that included Malcolm parcels as well. I don't believe there's a trigger for Chapter 343 compliance or doing an EA for this development. And I think the consultation was done for something that was proposed earlier that maybe you guys weren't necessarily involved in. But getting back to, I guess that it comes back to the purchase of the Makai parcel, which now Hawaii Investors One owns, I believe. And a lot of the testimony was about open space and trying to preserve open space. Right now, I know you guys are planning a road through. Have you considered maybe keeping more open space on that Makai parcel, or is there any development plan? Or are you going to pursue the prior development plans for that? I guess I'd be interested to hear that.
I can speak to it. Matt, you can add if you'd like. I worked with Ernie, who's also at Aldersgate, when they purchased the parcel. I think it just kind of evolved when the ordinance allowed for the two accesses to parcel 121 for the subdivision. We analyzed the Nanaloa access, and then we analyzed the Li'i Drive access. And so then we negotiated that easement, as I mentioned earlier. And then the owner of the parcel expressed an interest in a possible sale, and Aldersgate thought it might make sense to acquire it for the road initially. But then long term, I think they're open to developing it in a culturally sensitive, ecological, and legal way. But there hasn't really been any definitive plans. So there can be some open space included. Also, you might be aware of, but just in case you're not, one of the public benefits to this subdivision is the Lalala Park. The ordinance allowed for a park to be developed within a half mile of the parcel. And subsequently, the developers agreed to put in a 3-acre park over on Lalala, which is badly needed for the community, which is quite a large commitment for a project of this size. So there is open space there that will be created with this subdivision, developed open space, actually. So I just wanted to make you aware of that in case you weren't already.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? I do have one, and the archaeological survey was done in 2010, 2000, well, anyway, in 16 years ago. Are there any plans to update that survey?
I would just say, and Darren or Matt, you can add to this. There hasn't been a requirement up in to update that survey. The land hasn't been used whatsoever. There's been zero use of either parcel. There's actually been zero activity other than the surveying of the easement and then the grubbing of parcel that was monitored, parcel 121. So not much has changed. I guess if there's a question of did the archaeologists do a good job, or both archaeologists, then I mean, I guess that could come into question, but SHPE signed off on both AISs, preservation plans. So everything was done per protocol. So there hasn't really been a need to update any, because the land hasn't been used for anything.
Right, thank you. So at this point, and this is to the commissioners, the one topic that has resonated through this meeting is the level and extent of consultation with the lineal and cultural descendants of the area, and perhaps even the neighboring Ahupua'a. And at this point, I'd like to ask if someone would like to make a motion in regard to that item to assure that the descendants, both cultural and lineal, are contacted. And we've had testimony this morning from the commissioners, as well as written and Zoom testimony with regard to more than one or two descendants of the area. So would anyone like to make a motion with regard to the extent of contact with the descendants?
Sure, Commissioner Hirano will make that motion. Do you want me to repeat it, or?
Yes, would you please? And yes, would you please?
I make a motion to recommend additional consultation with lineal descendants from the proposed parcel and neighboring Ahupua'a.
I second.
Thank you. It's been introduced by Commissioner Hirano and seconded by Commissioner Louie in regards to this motion. And at this time, I would like to see a show of hands by the commissioners with regard to the motion on the floor.
Excuse me, Chair, can I add?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe we would want to add in not just lineal, but cultural descendants. It seemed it would be to the motion.
That's a good addition. Thank you.
I would consider that a friendly amendment.
A friendly amendment. Okay. Thank you, Kilo. I know you've had extensive training on protocols. All right. So at this time, I would like to have a show of hands with regards to the motion on the floor. Well, instead of show of hands, I'm actually going to do a roll call. And that would be starting with Matt Clark, yay or nay?
Yay.
Kilohana Hirano.
Aye.
Kuule Keakealani.
Aye.
Kealoha Kini.
Aye.
Nicole Louie.
Aye.
Aaron Spielman.
Yes.
And the chair votes aye. So it's a unanimous decision. Thank you. Now, are there any other items or that came up during the meeting that we should take to the county or to the developers in regards to the development? And we should do that by motion of the commission.
I do have a mana'o. I think it was certainly brought up in testimony and maybe just kind of the reality of the situations, right? When we look at traffic, impacts of traffic, also water usage, infrastructure, roadways, things of that sort cannot not be considered for ohana that live in Kona. And we hear it, maybe some of you do listen to Kahikina on the radio, but they talk about I think he says the Ali'i Drive crawl, or I don't know, I might be, but anyway, right, it's the reference to the traffic situation there. So that sort of impact, certainly we look at the impact to site, to place, and I think that makes, when I look at that word remnant, and like that's maybe all we get left, remnant of this, of that, of a house site, of a wall or whatnot. And that our history remains in the land, the mo'olelo remain in the aina. And the more and more these gems and jewels and remnant, perhaps that's all we have left, continue to be physically wiped away of the landscape, that does have a direct effect on culture, on cultural ways, cultural practices. So those sorts of things is kind of what I'm looking at: traffic, water, roadways, infrastructure, those sort of impacts. And so I hope again that's on everybody's radar, and I'm sure it is, but I just would like to voice that and put that out again for the consideration and contemplation of all.
Thank you, Ku'ule. I'm going to make a comment, and Kamu, if you'll correct me. The letter from the director was very pointed as to what we should consider, which we did in the motion. We can use Ku'ule's comments in part of the letter to the director, but I'm thinking not as a motion.
So, Kara, are you saying you want to discuss further what Ku'ule? So you want to communicate what she's saying, but
Right.
not necessarily
Not necessarily through a motion, because those comments were part of the testimony, different folks' testimony, but not put it as a formal motion, if that's something, but we can relay those comments in our letter to Director Kern.
Well, maybe this will help clarify things, right? So you folks as a recommending body, and your rules state that you do make comments to the director, but you also help any governmental agency and entity in terms of consultation and expertise related to cultural matters, right? So the letter the response does go to Director Kern, but your recommendations equally go to LPC, right? So in the letter, you can communicate that you're communicating to both at the same time. And so if it's not in the form of a motion, the mana'o will still get to both.
It'll be transmitted.
The letter.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's what I wanted to make clear. Any other mana'o or thoughts as far as motions? I see Nicole has her hand up.
Yeah. I guess it makes where I'm trying to comment on the access issues for descendants. Will this be a gated community?
Darren or Ken?
Darren?
I don't believe so, because first of all, Nani Lo is a public road, and all the streets are going to be dedicatable, so it'll be no gates.
Okay, and then so is it there going to be I noticed it said owners association, So is that an association all the homeowners come under?
Yes, most subdivisions do have associations. In this
Okay.
case, they're going to have limited duties. For instance, regarding the burials, they'll be responsible for maintaining any common properties, which include the 2 burial sites. It includes a 5,000-foot park, which is parcel, I believe it's 21, right at the entrance off Naniloa. And any open space parcels that are common area, they'll be responsible to maintain. The association would be probably the body that would honor any cultural resources or descendant visits or whatever's required to honor the cultural resources and so forth. But it will be a limited association because there's not a lot of big facilities like pools and parks and stuff to take care of. It's just mainly the burial sites and the park and any open space.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Yeah, you answered that. That was going to be my next about keeping in touch, or is that somebody we can contact when we want to do a site visit? That would be the association. Okay.
Let me just clarify, if I may. The way the subdivisions work, which you probably already know, but is the owner, the developer is the association initially. So the developer will write up the association rules and commitments and so forth. And so any language to honor cultural descendants or cultural practitioners will be put into the association rules when the developer is still part of the association. Then when 50% of the units are sold, it's formally transitioned to, in most cases, to the owners, which the developer is still part of until all units are sold. So, and at that point, but any rules or any commitments from the association would already be in place with for preservation and so forth.
Thank you. If I may, part of the planning department's background report, number 4, I think, proposed development, kind of getting to the water thing, because water is such a important resource, and of course we live in an arid land and all the water is underneath. I remember asking my grandpa one time, "Oh, grandpa, where all the water? No more rivers and stuff." And he said, "Oh, the water underneath." And I said, "What? What do you mean the water underneath?" He said, "Oh, lolo hupo, my head in the dock." He said, "Underneath the earth." So I said, "Oh," so from that time on, I always thought about that, and it's true. The water flows under the ground. So I noticed in the proposed development, there was the first paragraph, fourth sentence says, additional parcels would be set aside either as an archaeological preserve, park, and open space, or should that say, to me, or should it say park and or open space? Because in number 34, back to description of the property, it says underwater, the bolded part water, it says 2 arc sites and the open space will not be needing water. So now if you put a park there will be need for water. Should we be certain about the wording and not say one thing in one part of the document and say something else in another part of the document? So that's just one of my concerns, because then, this leaves it open for you guys can go change, yeah, and then use that and make water. So I don't know. Is it
I can clarify that for you if you like.
Thank you.
So this subdivision, in discussions with DWS, many discussions over a long period of time, will probably be under what's called a master meter, which means the water will come off the Naniloa DWS water line and then go into a master meter and be directed to the units, which would include irrigation for the open space, burials, or the park, the small park. But the number of units allocated dictates how many structures can be built. So I think what you're reading there is kind of referring to 2 different things, even though I agree it's probably not worded the best it could be. but that's how the water is going to be allocated or addressed. At least that was our discussions with DWS when the subdivision was being approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Darren, did you have a comment? No?
Oh, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Nicole. I do have a hand up. Kamu?
Yeah, Chair. I just wanted to, as you guys are going through the deliberation, to think about what your folks' next step in this process is, because your question kind of threw me off. Like, some things we're going to make a motion for, and some things we're just going to communicate in a letter. And I think maybe it will help you guys if we return back to the type of review you folks are doing and what your rules, what the process asks you folks to do. So if you don't mind, I can show you the slide again that you folks had training on, so that you guys know what your next steps, your next options are, or we can continue. You can continue discussing, and then I can show you that after. It's up to you.
Nicole, did you have any other comments?
Okay, yeah. Going back to access and the lineal descendant, I think SHPD, the Vero branch, cultural branch, culture and history branch, did kind of not doing due diligence when they're not sharing names of descendants who are recognized. I think it's not the archaeologist's fault entirely. It should be SHPD contacting them and saying, okay, here is a list of all the descendants who have been recognized for this certain ahupua'a and the project that is coming up. Because I think that should happen. And then a list should also be the county, you know, for contacting the descendants. And then I think there should be also community meetings when stuff like this, especially for sensitive areas like this. I think we should be meeting with the people, because Hawaiian people, we're working hard for survive, you know, we all at work and all this, we don't need the PIPA all the time. Not all of us get the PIPA. So we're not going to see this article in the PIPA telling us that get this project going on and, you know, maybe put up big billboards, come to a meeting, you know, put them up in front of the project area, come to a meeting, you know, let the people know firsthand. But I think, yeah, falls short. County falls short, and so does the SHPD of trying to get a contact list out for descendants and doing more consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Good suggestions. I'm going to go back to Kamu.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I'm going to share screen. Okay, are you folks able to see that, Chair?
Yes.
And everyone else? Okay. And Jean, after I'm done, or any point in this, what I share, if you need to correct, please do. But so here we go. As part of this review, after the commission has reviewed all materials and public testimony pertaining to a project, the commission may A, request further information regarding the project, including but not limited to an opinion from SHPD. B, vote on a recommendation which may include an opinion as to whether the project is not likely to impact a historic asset, will have a limited but acceptable impact to the historic asset, or will likely have a substantial impact on historic asset. And the other follow-up option you guys have, actually these three work together. The commission shall forward their recommendation, including possible modifications, mitigation measures, or suggestions regarding the proposal to the proposing agency or person for their consideration or execution. So To me, Gene, Gene, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to point back to this flow chart. The two things you guys can vote on is going to be the level of impact. And then, of course, you guys are going to vote on, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. So the level of impact is here, but that statement is also going to make it into the letter itself. And then you guys need to vote on that letter. I just wanted to clarify because I think you're thinking, the way you pose the question to me is like, we're going to vote on this measure. But just to know, those measures are going to go into a letter. See, the letter goes to the proposing agency. And again, like I said, this is to the director and the LPC, right? So the letter will be kind of encompass everything, but if you guys needed to vote on the level of impact, which is this B3 sub-bullet B, that impact assessment is kind of like a statement, but it's still going to make it in the letter. I hope I'm not making this more confusing than it is, but this is how you're going to package up your recommendations to Director and Leeward Planning Commission.
Okay, so can you go back to the level of impact, that slide?
Okay, it's here, and
Here,
and
no
here.
impact acceptable. And substantial impact.
And I just want to, Chair, you know, you guys do have the option of I'll let you go from there.
Okay, all right. So we can include this as a motion that the commission, there is a level of impact. There either is no impact, substantial, acceptable, or substantial impact.
Now, how you guys want to craft
Yeah,
that?
right. I don't know how, unless
If you need more time, Chair, you folks, again, look back at your rules and realize what you folks need to do to get to that point. Chair, do you mind if I ask Jean if there was
no,
any
I don't mind
conflict?
at all. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Jean, does that seem like we're in line with what the rules are telling them?
Yes, yes, I think what you said is exactly correct.
Okay.
Okay. Kealoha, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just have a comment, and it kind of goes to what we're talking about, and it just, you know, I think we definitely talked about the issue with the lineal descendants and inadequate consultation, and there's already been a motion on that. And I guess the second order of business, or the second question that was posed in the letter was about the mitigation to the impacts, which is kind of hard to assess when it doesn't seem like we have enough information from lineal descendants. But what I wanted to do was just to make sure I have all of the information, or we have all the information we need, is to provide one opportunity for either Ken or Darren to just kind of list off the things that they have done to mitigate out of the sort of the issues with the lineal descendant consultations, as well as any mitigations in terms of the open space and access issues. And then also just one clarifying point too, going back to that cultural assessment, you know, one of the descendants did say they wanted to see 12,000 square foot properties. And I was wondering, it doesn't sound like that's what happened, and how is that mitigated? So yeah, I just want to make sure I have like all of the different mitigations that you feel you provided to deal with these impacts.
Darren, do you want me to answer?
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to start, and I can jump in as well.
Sure. That's a really good question, and it's kind of I became involved in the project in 2017, early 2017, right when I left the Kanoe administration. And at that point, obviously the reports were already, you know, dated. They'd been out for a while, and our focus at that time was following the rezoning ordinances and the SHPD approved preservation plans that were in place, that were already, you know, on the books or, you know, of record, which we did to the T, to the best of our abilities. It wasn't easy. By no means did any of us try to skip any measures as far as lineal descendants and cultural resources were to go. I know the report was already done back in 2007. And so we're open at this point to implement whatever's fair, whatever's needed, because the owners are very culturally sensitive and not money hungry developers, as some of the testifiers, you know, think. And most of us live in homes built by developers, and we need housing. We need housing desperately here in Hawaii. That is one of the concerns, along with water and traffic and other things. There is a shortage of housing. So it's a big picture, and your job's not easy trying to manage the cultural resource side of it and the growth side of it. It's you know, I commend you guys for what you have to do, because, you know, my wife, Joy Pilani Trask, is very Hawaiian. And so I'm very versed through my marriage and through her family. And the Duarte side too. Her mom comes from Kona for many, many generations. So I understand the importance of the past, probably more so than a lot of people that move here that were born here. However, I also understand the importance of development. So I'm not answering your question, but it's just my heart. We're open to whatever is recommended, whatever we can do. It's just a little bit tricky right now, because typically you're consulted at the beginning, which you were, I guess, back in 2007. And at this point, we have an approved subdivision plan, which was not easy, an approved DWS or plan, and approved DPW plan. So the development is kind of not only, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested in time, but it's already been approved. And so I guess the question is, how can we best honor whatever recommendations you have with our existing plan, because we are so far down the road. And I don't know if you, you know, as we testified in front of the Planning Commission, and, you know, I didn't want to call out housing, but I guess just to make it clear, this thing was a done deal, except housing delayed it, and it shouldn't have happened. And that's when the funding and the bonding got lost. And the county knows that, and that's why they're working with us to get this approved, because they're very supportive of this project. But we're open to whatever you have to say, but because it's so dated now, like you said, it's 13, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, it's really difficult to go back and change things in the past. We can only move forward with whatever is recommended at this time. But just to reiterate, when I got on board in 2017, we were working with the state agencies very closely to honor all the recorded documents, but we didn't, in no means, meant to discharge or not, you know, consult anybody we should have culturally or descendant wise. Maybe they weren't adequately documented in the first place, which hopefully we can address now.
Thank you, Ken. Any follow-up, Kinoho?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I really appreciate that, Ken. And it seems like the park open space was one of the mitigations that you guys have, as well as the burial treatment plan. And just, I wanted to follow up on also the sort of the environmental side, because, you know, it is connected culturally to, in terms of that's the resources and the coastal land as well that have been documented in the use of those spaces. What exactly is the septic or sewage plan for that development? What kind of system are you using there?
The approved wastewater treatment plan that was approved by wastewater, and part of the approved plans was to connect to the sewer on Hawaiʻi Drive.
Okay.
So the actual piping will be under the access road, and then it will go to Hawaiʻi Drive and go about, I think it's 500 feet north and connect into the existing sewer.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so that was one of my questions. And yeah, I did want that clarification on the 12,000 square foot lot size recommendation from one of the in the previous cultural resource or cultural impact statement. So that wasn't able to, you guys weren't able to do that, right?
Can you clarify that they wanted 12,000 square foot minimum lot size, or 12,000?
Yeah, I think it was
for preservation purposes.
No, I think it was lot size. One of the it was Mr. Medeiros. I can't remember the name now. I have to look back. But there were recommendations. There weren't very many recommendations, which is I thought was interesting. But one of them was the walkthrough. Another one was you know, the size of the lots, and I guess what I was asking is was that one of the driving factor for creating a park space, or was that part of it? Is that how you guys mitigated that, or?
Can you just clarify, when you say park space, are you referring to the 5,000 square foot park we included in the subdivision on parcel 121? Are you including the 3-acre park we're building off site?
I was thinking of the 3-acre one. Yeah. Yeah.
So that so a little bit of history. Alder's Gate, or Hawaii 1, they originally were going to develop a much larger project that included 1 or 2 parcels. This is way before my time, and Matt, you can correct me if I say anything that's erroneous, but just Malka of this parcel is the Hawaiʻi Parkway, and just Malka of that or some other parcels that Hawaii 1 was involved with. And it was I believe a 200 plus development. It was much larger than the one that's being proposed now. And in that negotiation with the county and discussions, I guess is a better word, with the counties for the ordinance, this 3-acre park as an option was put in. When the project was downsized substantially and those parcels were subsequently sold, the developer agreed to keep that commitment, even though a project this size doesn't call for that large of a fair share, especially for parks. It's you know, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar cost to develop the park, soccer field, baseball, you know, bathrooms, so forth. And that's already been approved by the county as well, with parks and with DPW. So that's where the park came from. It was kind of inherited from a much bigger project. As far as the 12,000 square foot lot size, the zoning ordinance was for 7.5, and subsequently the PUD was passed, which allowed the developer to kind of arrange the lots in more of a synchronous way and have some open space and so forth. I was not involved with any discussions as far as the lot sizes, because it was way before I got involved. So if Matt, if you want to add something, feel free. But I'm not sure what was, if the 12,000 just wasn't financially feasible because it didn't create enough lots to cover the costs, would be my guess. But I'm not clear on what was discussed.
I can add to that. I'm Matt Mancy. I'm the developer and applicant. And that's correct. The project was much larger at one point. The northern parcel was included in all this at one point, and larger lots were considered. And when that parcel was lost, and we had to regroup on the lower parcel. It just wasn't financially feasible, but we were able to keep that park, large park requirement.
Thank you.
And that was to the east, not the north, just FYI, in case anybody got confused.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Matt. Any further discussion, commissioners?
I have a question. A question.
Go ahead, Nicole.
In the letter, it says to Director Zenderkern, it says, furthermore, the LPC question if the level of consultation with lineal descendants in the planning of the overall project. What does that mean? That means you can go in and help plan?
Where's Darren? You want to venture to answer that question, or Ken?
I'm not sure what letter she's referring to.
This one. Oh, look, you see.
Madam Chair, Christian K here from the County Hawaiʻi Planning Department. Aloha. I was in charge of drafting that letter. I'm the planner who worked on the projects. We took the language directly from the planning commissioner's words, and that's what we translated in that letter. So to the extent that I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what was meant by, I believe that was Chair Vatusik, but that's just the information that we have at this point.
Okay. Thanks, Christian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Bell. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Darren.
Thank you. To speak to that particular question, that is why during my initial presentation, I basically broke up the LPC's request into 4 different components, and we tried to demonstrate that we addressed these questions, each particular question as best as we could, based on all of the studies and work that was done in the 7 years that the applicant has been in possession of the property. So as far as I feel that any motion that comes out of the commission should speak directly to the questions that were set forth by the Leeward Planning Commission. So I just wanted to offer that for your consideration.
That's fine, Darren. And now I'm going to ask you to please reiterate the 4 items. I know it had to do the first one with the cultural and lineal descendants and contact with them.
Right. So the way I understood it, the first component was impact upon the overall cultural landscape, and that's when I briefly mentioned it's not situated in the Kahului Historic District. Archaeological reports were prepared. Final data recovery plan and burial treatment plans were accepted by SHPE. A CIA was prepared by Kaini Pono. And the applicant himself is not aware of the property being host to any unknown value, cultural, historic, or native resources, such as flora. The second question was whether the level of consultation with lineal descendants in the planning of the overall project was sufficient. We basically provided a laundry list of how there were advertisements back in 2016 and even as far back as 2007 that resulted in at least one descendant being identified, and that person was Clarence Medeiros. And the also noted that the assessment recommended that Kahului family and the Hawaii Ohana also be afforded the opportunity to walk through the subject property. Let's see, and also mentioned that the other consultants were Wadi Green, Clarence Medeiros, and Mahealani Pai. Third question, whether lineal descendant access issues have been fully considered by SHPE and resolved in the burial treatment plan. The applicant can only speak to the fact that the Burial Council did accept the burial treatment plan as approved. And that's all the applicant can rely on.
Correct.
And finally, the final question was whether linear descent and access and open space requirements should be proposed to mitigate or minimize project impacts on the overall cultural landscape. That one, we demonstrated that there was basically a reliance. Years and years worth of studies and work was based on guidance from all of these various agencies, whether it was through conditions required by the county council, working with the planning department in managing all of these studies and plans, working with Shippey Burial Council to make sure that those plans meet their requirements and satisfy their fiduciary obligations. The applicant really tried to basically follow the process, and that's all they could do. And if they fell short, at least as may be perceived by others who have provided testimony to the commission, I'm not sure what the applicant can do at this point in order to try to make additional efforts if the commission feel it's appropriate and warranted, but we wanted to make it clear it was not due to a lack of effort or lack of attention or diligence on behalf of the landowner and the applicant.
Thank you, Darren. So there were the 4 items that the Leeward Planning Commission had asked of the county to relate to the to our commission. As far as access issues, for me, it's really the one item you mentioned was the impact on the cultural landscape, and it's really difficult for me to try to define that for that area. Particularly in what we were sent to read, and then not having the boots on the ground opportunity to visit the project area. And access issues, and you're right, they are defined in the burial treatment plan, but I don't know if, and I can't recall if that treatment plan was part of the information that was sent to us. But I do know that access issues or access to the property by lineal and cultural descendants need to be spelled out clearly in that burial treatment plan. And then as far as open space requirements, you had mentioned there were additional, if we'd like to see additional efforts, or you are making additional efforts with that regard, Darren?
I'm sorry, I kind of cut the last
open
part. I was
space,
writing notes based on your previous. I'm sorry.
Okay, the open space requirement is whether additional efforts, have been taken by the developer. And I know the developer has come in, only in the last few years, but with that regard.
I think the testimony today from the developer will prove that they feel that
they have
providing improvements, offsite improvements, Lalala Park, providing on-site improvements to 5,000 square foot neighborhood park, the burial site preservation areas and its associated buffers. All of that goes towards what they feel is appropriate open space accommodations. That's appropriate to the size and scope of this particular project. But if obviously that's the direction I think that we're trying to get from the commission, is whether if it's not enough, then exactly why is it not enough, and what the applicant should be looking at more closely in order to be able to properly assess how much more is needed or recommended.
All right, Darren, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any other further comments with regard to this project?
Aloha, Chair.
Go ahead, Matt.
I guess I would add in terms of, I believe they fulfilled the obligations that SHPD put before them. They met the letter of the law where it comes to getting permission from the State Historic Preservation Division to do the work they did. But I do think the State Historic Preservation Division, and it was a different division back in 2006 and 2007 than it is now, failed in their obligation to require additional consultation as some of these, even in the AIS, there should have been consultation for E-sites. That was not required of the developer at the time, and they did get acceptance letters for those reports, but Shifty should have asked them for more consultation regarding these sites. There was limited consultation in the burial treatment plans. There are provisions for lineal and cultural access in those plans. And they did go before the Burial Council, and they did advertise, and they did everything they were supposed to. I believe in terms of the subdivision, since the area has been grubbed, and maybe, Alan or Ken can testify to this, there's unlikely any of those sites that were in that grubbed area are unlikely to still be on the ground. So, I think in terms of that as open space or consultation, maybe that opportunity has been foreclosed upon. They got their permits, they did everything they were supposed to. I do believe there are opportunities for more consultation, perhaps in the areas Makai of what they're proposing for the subdivision and adjacent to the roadways, where there are, I know, at least 20 burial features, and maybe it's something, I don't know if there's any additional SHPD review that will need to occur. That may be an area where we could address as the Cultural Resource Commission. Thank you.
Okay. Staff, what's the response time back to the planning director and the planning commission? Is there a deadline for getting comments back?
Chair, the rules are not explicit, but of course we want to be diligent in responding as soon as possible, as they have their own deadlines. At the same time, when I look back at the rules, because it says so, short answer, it's good practice to respond as soon as possible, but it's related to the quality of the review and the deliberation that you folks have had. And that's your folks' discernment to know for yourselves if the quality of the information you reviewed and the amount of deliberation you've had amongst yourselves is sufficient. And so you want to do that as soon as possible.
All right, thank you, Kamu. I'm going to throw this question to the commissioners, and exactly what you said, and that is, are we satisfied with the quality and deliberation of our discussion this morning? Asking for comments from the commission. And again, I'd like to mention that a letter will go to the planning commission, to the planning director, as far as the Leeward Planning Commission, with our comments captured in that letter. I don't see any hands up. So is that a yay?
My hand up.
Oh, okay. I was looking for the yellow hand, Nicole. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
No, no
sorry.
worries. Go ahead.
I get big hands, yes. But so as far as consultation, then, so is it? So I guess I'm having a hard time. So Matt said, okay, Matt, can there be an amendment to the already existing CIA? Alan, Matt, who can answer that? I don't know.
I don't believe they have any requirement to prepare a CIA.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get at is if we want them to do more consultation, is there a process, and does it call for attaching it to one of the documents, say like the burial treatment plan or the whatever plan? I'm kind of lost at that because I think isn't that what we're asking for more consultation? But I know you said already they've done everything and that's kind of foreclosed on, but if we want them to do more consultation, where would that go? That's what I'm trying to say. So can somebody answer me?
So, Nicole, why don't you just make a motion? Exactly what you said, as far as additional consultation in regards to that plan. And we will forward that on. We'll vote on it and forward it on.
Okay,
Did we already make that recommendation?
No, not for that plan. I don't think so.
Okay.
But I want it in the form of a motion so that it'll get on that letter.
Okay, a motion to, what am I saying? Further consultation
for the plan.
For the plan, the CIA plan, I guess.
The
cultural impact assessment.
Impact assessment, correct.
And if we can do an amendment to that plan and extend on.
Well, I think
I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry.
Well, I think what you want to do is a more updated plan.
Yes, okay, to update the CIA plan and to attach that the future consultations with descendants who will be coming forward and to that plan.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to repeat it, Nicole, and this is your motion to update the cultural impact plan to include the lineal and cultural descendants. The present lineal and cultural descendants. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Better than what I said. Thank you.
Okay. So commissioners, that's the motion on the floor. And I would appreciate a voice response, and I'll do it now. Oh, I need a second. I need a second to that motion, please.
Chair, can I just clarify something really fast?
Yes, you can.
So Nicole, are you referring to the cultural impact study / assessment? Because in the motion, we're calling it a cultural impact plan, or
the cultural impact assessment.
Assessment, yeah.
Or study, because it's a CIA's /S, right? So I'm not sure what to call it. Cultural impact assessment or cultural impact study.
I believe it was labeled as a cultural impact assessment, yeah?
Yes, okay. Yes.
Okay.
So if I use the word plan, then it's a minor item to change it to cultural impact assessment. All right. So voice vote, Matt Clark.
Point of order, Madam Chair, we need a second.
No, I'm sorry. Are you seconding?
I will second.
You know how
yes.
now? Thank you. Matt Clark.
So we're recommending that they prepare a new cultural impact assessment.
Well, to update it.
To update it.
Yeah. And to include those cultural and lineal descendants.
I mean, I agree with part of it. I agree that they should do additional consultation. I'm not sure
if it can be.
I would maybe like to word it slightly differently.
Okay, that's fine. Nicole, you need, since you're the maker of the motion, you need to accept the amendment.
Okay, that's why I was asking earlier, earlier that where would we attach this further consultation to?
I'm sorry, what was our earlier motion? It was
for further consultation.
On the project.
For me, I believe that covers it.
And then this one would be more specific. So I'm going to ask Jean what your thoughts are if our earlier motion, the one and only motion, covered the cultural impact assessment, or if it would give credence to the separate motion regarding that assessment.
Could I ask somebody to read the previous motion for all of us again so that we're up to date on what that is?
Okay, Kim or Kamu, can you do that? My notes are all over the place here.
Okay. As paraphrased, the motion was asking for more consultation with lineal and cultural descendants overall, on the project overall. So.
Sorry, and it was to include the neighboring parcels as well.
Correct, yeah.
The neighboring parcels, Kim, or the neighboring ahupua'a?
Possibly neighboring ahupua'a. I wrote down parcels though, so I'd have to go back and check.
And just remember, again, I'm going to reiterate this. You folks are recommending, you guys are shooting back to Leeward Planning Commission, just to let you guys know, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And because the developer is going to go back before the Leeward Planning Commission after the Leeward Planning Commission receives your folks' recommendation on the project to them. Let me ask Christian. That's how I see it. Is that how you see it, Christian?
Thank you. Yeah. I would defer to you on kind of the role of the CRC relative to the rules. As I understand it, this will be a recommendation that goes to the planning director and then will be forwarded back to the Leeward Planning Commission, who has the authority to, if they so choose, add additional conditions of the requested permit amendments and rezoning amendments to address what you're recommending. So that's what I would kind of provide at this point.
Thank you, Christian.
If it's still to me, I guess I would prefer to recommend additional consultation and let the Leeward Planning Commission decide what form that takes.
Okay.
So if we're voting on the current motion, I guess I would vote nay.
Okay, so let's go back. Then we could, Nicole, at this point, I'm thinking at this point, could withdraw her motion and the second, and just let it go with our initial motion that encompassed the entire project. Is that something, is that legal, Jean?
You can do either of two things. You can vote on this motion and
vote it down?
either accept it or vote it down.
Mm-hmm.
And voting it down wouldn't impact your previous motion that you already passed.
Okay.
So that one, that one's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can withdraw this one and not bother to vote on it. You have those two choices.
Thank you. So the response then is from Nicole, the initiator of the motion, and Kilohana, who seconded the motion. If you're willing to withdraw the motion, Nicole, if you're satisfied that our initial motion will include that cultural assessment.
Okay. My discerning says, okay, we'll decline on it.
Okay, all right, and Kilohana?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you
All
for
right.
clarification, Christian and Matt. Okay.
All right. If there are no further comments on this agenda item, I'm going to thank the project coordinators, Darren Arai, Matt, Alan, Ken, for coming to this meeting to update us on that project. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity before you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Chair,
All
Madam
right.
Chair, can I have one comment real quick?
Yes, Ken.
Just wanted to note that the project, the property, the land is still there. Nothing's been done to it. So it's absolutely available for any visitations, or you tell us what we need to do, but it's more than open. Nothing's been changed. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Ken, for the invitation, and we may take you up on it.
I mean, my
Mahalo.
invitation, it's your land.
Mahalo.
Culturally.
And just because, you know, it is my job to do this, if you guys do decide to do a site visit, make sure that you have less than a quorum that's going out there to do that.
All right. Point taken, Jean. Thank you. All right. So now we're going to move to administrative matters, and that's the approval of the minutes of our May 11 meeting. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second for approval minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the Cultural Resources Commission dated
May 11.
11, 2022.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Ku'ulei.
Okay, thank you, Ku'ulei. All right, so it has been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of May 11. Any discussion on the minutes? If none, I'm going to call for the vote. And this, you can just say all in favor, please. A voice just by, well, why don't we do show of hands? That'd be easier. And you don't have to use the yellow hand, just raise your hand. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. It looks unanimous. The motion is carried. And again, Kim, thank you for your awesome work on our minutes. We appreciate it. The next meeting of the commission is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, July 13, 2022. Staff, are there any additional announcements?
No, Chair, none from me.
Okay, then I'm going to thank all of you for being on this meeting this morning. Mahalo to the planning staff and of course, again, to all of you. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Thank you, everybody.
Mahui ho.